I always try to reflect a little bit on the work of a featured reader. And the
Hmm.
first poems I came across, I thought really centered on body and on voice. And I had a strong sense of magical realism, which I felt took us really fast from the mundane into the mythic. Especially the poem I Lost My Shoes on Rachel Street, which reminded me of ancient creation myths where the body of a god or goddess is used to create the world. And the same thing happens in the poem with the poet whose body is used to form parts of the city. And the more I read, the more I became impressed with the strong inner voice of your poems, which I think is informed by your background as a performer, but also really strongly invokes the spell like character of poetry. And to me, these poems assert themselves as strong and powerful voices against grave injustices, for instance, violence against women. So that's my little reflection. And of course, I have a question that I want to ask each featured reader. And because we are in November, early November, and we've had Halloween and All Saints Day and All Souls Day, I thought I would like to ask you, to what other worlds does poetry connect you? So to what other worlds or what other worlds?
Thank you, Mila. I'm sitting in our apartment, by the way, which is still covered in Halloween decorations, and will probably stay covered in Halloween decorations until the Christmas ones go up, because my extended family adores Halloween. And thank you for your reflection. That's really kind on Rachel Street. That was actually one of the first poems that I written moving to Montreal, and I think it did shift. It signified a shift in voice for me, an expansion, but also it's ironic because I'm quite I'm very curious about creation myths in general, and particularly land mythology. And Montreal doesn't have a lot, or rather it does, but it's the indigenous knowledge which was destroyed or was hidden for years and years and years. So there's a mountain in the middle of Montreal, and nobody can tell me the story of the mountain in Montreal, the Montréal. So yeah, that's an interesting switch around. Thanks for that. Poetry in other worlds. Actually, even for the sense of the mythic, I am woefully grounded in this earth. I think I don't have a huge mystical sense about me, but what I am endlessly curious about, and I think exhausted by enough that perhaps that's why I don't have a sense of mystical so much, is the diversity of life and story that we've got going on the planet anyway. And so what I welcome, and particularly in somewhere like Montreal, which is so multicultural, which is so diverse, which is full of, what was the phrase I had the other day? Cultures multiple, diverse, and specific. And actually, you could spend your whole time voyaging between these worlds right in the city, and I do actually. That's the joy of it. There's so much of a poetry scene here, so much of poetry scenes and cultures that's I think really what I spend my time doing, and it seems to take up quite a lot of time.
Well, that sounds wonderful. And I hadn't realized that Montreal is actually Montreal. So,
Maybe, yeah.
oh, wow, I learned something. Well, thanks for that.
Well, yeah. So in the Ganyangahaga, it's Jojage. In the Anishinaabeg, it's Muniang. But Montreal is Montréal, as in the Royal Mountain, and that was the name given by the settlers to the one hill, the one small hill that they call a mountain in the middle of the city. Honestly, coming from Scotland and Edinburgh, you're like, a mountain, really, lads, really? But it's a bit TARDIS-like. It's bigger on the inside.
Well, I mean, I'm sure as a Dutch person, I would be very impressed with this mountain because we don't have any.
The things are relative. I see that. Yes.
Yeah. So I'd love to invite you up on the stage, as it were. So please.
Um, Good evening, afternoon, everybody, depending on where you are. Yous are obviously far flung, and it's lovely to see the names and the places that have come into the chat. So yes, I'm originally from County Down in Northern Ireland, which is the one that looks out over Scotland. Maura Maloney is waving to me. Maura, I'm wondering if there's an Irish connection there. And I left home at 18 and sort of bobbed about the place for a bit. And then I had 6 years in Edinburgh, Scotland, and they were very important years to me. And they were very rich years as well. And then I moved in 2017 to Quebec in Canada. And people say, oh, you moved to Canada. And I always tend to correct them, go, no, I moved to Quebec because I feel like moving, say you move to Canada when you've moved to Quebec is like moving to Scotland and say that you've moved to Britain, you know? You just wouldn't quite say it. It's its own place. And also, disgracefully, the furthest west I've managed to go is Ottawa. So I actually have no idea what the rest of Canada looks like. As I say, this place would keep me quite busy. So I've been here for 4 years, and my partner is Francophone. So I'm now living sort of half in English, half in French. So I don't know how many French speakers there are out there, but you are wide and diverse yourselves. So I thought I'd open up with a half and half version. And the book came out in a bilingual version, and I'm very lucky in that I have a translator literally in house, and it's from my partner who translates. Quebec has a form of French called Joal, which is to French what Scots or Ulster Scots would be to English, I would say, or just the slang. So it's quite fun to play with, particularly in translation, particularly when some of my poems are using a Northern Irish vernacular. So this is broad, or en français, large. Dans une bar bondée à Belfast, une voix de campagne, fumée bredillante, plonge dans mes oreilles. Eh ben, t'es pas mal costaud, toi. Jesus, you're a hefty one. I believe it was a compliment he thought he paid. Ses épaules sont larges. Ma mère est une fille de fermier. Sa voix peut traverser 3 champs. From her I gained blue eyes, childbearing hips, and feet planted family tree trunk to the ground. D'elle j'appris que penser d'abord à soi est une vice. Il est important de mettre les patates sur la table pour tes frères avant de remplir la demande pour t'inscrire à l'université. Elle a fait les deux, she did both. The first in the family to live by words rather than by her hands, and she grew along the way uncharacteristically quiet. C'est parfois difficile d'expliquer le poids du papier. In the church hall after my great-grandmother's funeral, they turn over my palms as they clasp my forearms. Ils ont retourné mes paumes en serrant mon avant-bras to see if I have yet managed an honest day's work, pour voir si j'avais déjà accompli une honnête journée de travail. I have only one callus to show them. The indentation between the knuckles, la marque entre les articulations de poids d'honneur dans ma main. I'm just going to do, it's 10 minutes and I know time is ticking, so I'm going to do 2 more. This is part of a longer suite that I'm still kind of working on, about moving here and trying to deal with that. I'm a chronic mover, or I was. The ones of us who move, you know, the breed that does that, to do the geographicals. Yeah, I see some nods. Clean sheets. I am standing in a corner of a bedroom, our bedroom, with a white sheet over my head reaching down to my ankles. My feet are bare and quiet. I am watching you sleep. I am pretending to be a ghost. In the last days, we are already living in the past, as last days are always already looking for the future tense. In this present, there is a wide black sea in my chest. Best not to go fishing there, my love, and yet how I want you to. I open my mouth, say nothing, suck polyester and bog cotton. I dreamed last night of a wedding and there was no one left to invite. The fibers are rough against my tongue and feel like company. The creases of the sheet become contours, a map for my mouth to probe. We stand on sheets of paper, feet planted like militia. The page becomes the territory, the foot becomes the word. I am pretending I am swimming. I would like, please, the full immersion option. Jealousy ripples across your chest like a squid. Let me rub my cunt up your belly, reassure you that you are mine. Who are we kidding? Your back is a threshold I cannot cross tonight. The words flow over the threshold. The mouth is a threshold. The ear is a threshold. We shout across the threshold. We stumble towards the threshold. We withdraw from the threshold. The threshold becomes a boundary. The boundary becomes a border. I reach for you across the border. You were already mapped. I knew that coming on board. I was curious about the corners of your story, the unmapped place, holes where dark things might live. But here we are now, living circular. Our footsteps are islands, and we read our paths, our history, and our regurgitations, and our, let us speak plainly, our vomit. We read our past in the regorged surge, making a mess on the floorboards again. I had my rough edges once, where things might catch. Now there is the ironing of sheets, the washing cycle. I drag armfuls down to the laundry. I tone damply in detergent. I bleach my palms and paddle through recycled air. I left so many names discarded on sheets of paper. Our footsteps root like islands amongst the pools of water. We read our paths, our history in the holes left behind, in the drifts of shredded paper. The thresholds are generous here. Crossing from frigid to thaw, traces left on the planks melting. Those left stranded will later be licked up by the cat. We give up our right to be grounded, stepping on heads like this, our contracted lives, our shared black borders. Let them shake the windows, the shadows on the walls, as much here as is really ours. I reach for a candle, a match, to make myself huge against the walls, leave some mark. The cat chases her own tail in the bathtub. Light more candles, burn off the tallow, the dead skin dust. We're making ghosts of ourselves, pressing the slough of our bodies back into our bare-souled feet. We could try smudging sage and sweetgrass to clear the air, but we don't have the right tilt to the world for it. You can't just strike a match and step into a culture. Light more candles, set fire to the walls. The cat shadow boxes is an innocent thing. The itch to claw down the curtains is a fatal finger twitch. We should go outside, but all the poetry has been excavated from the snowdrifts. We all look the same under dark winter coats. I back into the wardrobe with the sheet wrapped around me, looking for the friendliness of things. I hide my face in my mother's ball gowns, my father's seldom worn suits. The map is still missing its corners. I chew on words and forget to swallow. Your back ripples and stirs, prepares to go fishing. The cat shadow boxes and is an innocent thing. There are long winters over here. Thank you. Okay, I'll just finish up with one more short one. Is that okay, Mila? And then, because you've other things to get through, I see. So just to finish up, and this really was a short one. The moons have names here, as in the months have names of the moons, if that makes sense, according to the moon. It's one of the indigenous calendars. So there's a strawberry moon and a frog moon, and there's a bear moon, and so on and so forth, relating to what's happening in the season. And I was up in the Côte Nord of Quebec, which is very beautiful. A mere 13 hours drive from Montreal, and it turns out you can listen to all of Leonard Cohen's back catalogue in that time, particularly if you're driving on your own. And I was up at a place called Moisy outside Sept-Îles on the Mississippi River, and it was August, which makes it the sturgeon moon. And the water becomes salt up there. I'm very far inland at the minute, but up there there's salt. Sturgeon moon. Lie still at the low ebb waterline. For once, let the waves do their caressing work. The salt to preserve that worth saving, tide to carry away what is not. Thank you very much for your attention.
Wow, that was spellbinding. Thank you so much. I really enjoyed that, and also the sort of back and forth between the French and the English in your first poem. Really interesting. Really enjoyed it. Thanks.
It's a real gift to be able to play with two languages now. I couldn't before. It's really fun.